Good afternoon, everyone. So good to see so many familiar faces and happy that you're all here. My name is Patty Barron, and I'm the Director of Family Readiness at the Association of the United States Army, and welcome to AUSA's 2017 annual meeting. Can anybody tell me what number annual meeting this is? Does anyone know? I thought it was the 63rd. Yeah, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? So we've been around a little bit. So I would like to welcome not only our in-house audience, but also our very robust online audience. And so welcome to AUSA's annual meeting live stream. Thank you for joining us. To our families in Houston and in Florida, recovering from the hurricanes, you are in our thoughts and as you continue to rebuild. To our families from Puerto Rico, we want you to know that AUSA is doing everything that we can to help the recovery efforts there, and that we are especially proud of Lieutenant General Buck Buchanan and his team who are working very, very hard to provide much needed support. It seems that this year was a year of sadness in our country and much tragedy. AUSA would like to pause to remember Denise Burditis, former Joint Base Lewis McChord Area AUSA Subchapter President and wife of former JBLM Special Forces soldier Tony. Also to remember Sergeant First Class Charleston Hartfield. Sergeant Hartfield and Mrs. Bursitis were killed in the Las Vegas shooting tragedy not too long ago, and so we do pause to remember them. We were busy this year, and thanks to your encouragement and the generous sponsorships of USAA, we were able to conduct many family forums in conjunction with other AUSA off-site events. All the forums focused on health and wellness. That was the series that we wanted to really make sure we had a good voice in, and we saved the very best for last. Soon you'll be hearing from the Surgeon General of the Army, you'll be hearing from the Director of the Defense Health Agency, and you'll be hearing from a panel of wonderful experts and also family members who will share their story on the path that they've had towards wellness. So we are very honored to have them all with us, and I will be introducing all of them soon. We also conducted our first ever AUSA Facebook Live series. It was called AUSA Spouse, Voice for a Simpler PCS. Believe it or not, we reached over 60,000 people in this Facebook Live series, so I was very excited, and you know how I am very calm and cool most of the time, but this time I got really excited. Anyway, we were hoping to do more Facebook Live series, and if you all have any suggestions for the types of topics that we should cover, please email me and let me know, because we are all ears. The forums and discussions are AUSA's way of amplifying the U.S. Army's narrative to family members and to help further AUSA's mission to educate, inform, and connect. None of this would have been possible without your membership. And today, we're very proud to unveil AUSA's family membership. For just $15 per person, you too can add a family member as part of your AUSA membership. And so you would ask me, Patty, why should my family member join AUSA? Why is that important? Because as a member, you'll be a part of our advocacy process. You'll also receive information sent directly to you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are spouses, how many of you have missed something because your soldier didn't bring home the information that they were supposed to? Well, if you join AUSA, you'll get that information sent directly to you. And finally, by joining AUSA as a family member, you have access to local networking opportunities through your local chapters, through AUSA's 123 chapters that are scattered nationwide and also overseas. You'll be able to find your military home whenever you PCS or transition out, because the chapters are made up of people just like you. This year's annual meeting offers new opportunities and surprises as well. Have you downloaded the AUSA app? Everybody show me your hands if you've downloaded the app. It's really pretty awesome, so we're really excited about it. So make sure you download it if you haven't yet. Amy, I know Amy's been having a bit of a problem with her app. We'll get you squared away, I promise. How about the walking challenge? Are you all participating in the walking challenge? Good, yes, absolutely. You log in an awful lot of steps here, and there's actually some pretty good prizes. I think there's like Starbucks gift cards, but the grand prize is a weekend away that has hotel and car rental covered, so that's not bad at all. And don't forget the entrepreneur training that we're having on Wednesday. We've been very fortunate to partner with our friends over at the Institute for Veteran and Military Families, and they are conducting an Ignite event, which is an all-day training for female veterans and female military spouses on how to either start or maybe if you've just started, the things that you need to know about having your own business. So it's going to be pretty exciting there. You can still register and show up on Wednesday and register to attend. They have a little bit more room. Okay, now it's time to get to the business at hand, the 2017 Military Family Forums. Let me start by thanking our sponsor for today's forum, GEICO. Would Ashley Branham please come up to the stage? Ashley will just give us a few comments. Real quick, Ashley has been with GEICO since 2012 after graduating from the University of South Carolina with a dual major in corporate finance and insurance and risk management. She began GEICO's management development program and she joined the marketing department in 2016. She is proud to manage the GEICO and AUSA partnership.
Hi everyone, I'll keep this pretty quick. GEICO is really proud to partner with AUSA. You may be eligible for a special discount on your GEICO auto policy if you're a member of AUSA. So either get a quote or call in to make sure that's on your policy if you're already a policy holder. Anytime you get a quote, whether you purchase the policy or not, money goes back to supporting AUSA's initiatives. So that's something that we're really excited about. I'm happy to be here at this forum today. I know how important health and family wellness is, so I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Okay, now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our 44th Surgeon General of the Army and Commanding General of the U.S. Army Medical Command, Lieutenant General Nadja West. General West is a graduate of the United States Military Academy and earned a Doctorate of Medicine degree from George Washington University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C. Her previous assignments include Commander of Womack Army Medical Center, Fort Bragg, Commanding General Europe Region Medical Command, and prior to her assignment as the Surgeon General, she served as the Joint Staff Surgeon to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. She is an incredible woman and a very amazing leader. So please join me in welcoming Lieutenant General West.
Well, good afternoon. Oh, come on. Good afternoon. Yeah. Look at, okay, we've got some motivated folks over there. Good afternoon. Patty, thanks so much for that very kind introduction. And it's really an honor for me to be with you here today. Just want to provide you some remarks here, but I really want to hear from you too. So hopefully we'll get through my remarks. And I have a lot of team members here from the MedCom and that can answer some questions as well. But I also wanted to just echo what Patty mentioned. There's been a lot of tragedy that's really struck over the last several months, several weeks, and again, just please keep everyone in your prayers for that, because we have a lot to be thankful for, a lot to be grateful for of our families, our friends, our service, and so as we think of those that are going through some tragedies, let's make sure that we keep them in our thoughts and prayers. So today's theme of this forum is It Takes a Team. And our service members make up the team that protects our freedom around the world. And they deserve a coordinated and committed team right here at home that can be relied upon to care for their families, especially their spouses, partners, children, and soldiers for life. And caring for our families is also a shared mission that takes a team. And I'm pleased to be able to say that Army Medicine is a committed team, committed to that mission, to provide premier, responsive medical capabilities and see that our military families are cared for, physically, mentally, and spiritually. But I need help with the chaplain for that. So, and chaplain's here, Chaplain Melville. But seriously, that's also part of it. That's also part of wellness and health, that aspect of our being. And before I continue, I'd really like to state how much I personally, and I'm sure that I can speak for General Milley here, appreciate all that you have done and all that you continue to do. America cares for and supports you, and we know that all the sacrifices, the contributions that you've made to make sure that your service member, your soldier is successful cannot be repaid, can't really be quantified. So each one of you deserves the appreciation and respect of a grateful nation. So I just want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank our panel up front for their participation today. And I'll leave the details of their comments to them, but we are all here with a shared responsibility and a collective purpose to promote and restore the wellness to all of those entrusted to our care. And as the medical branch of our Army, we have been specifically tailored to provide for the health services needs of those who carry out the mission of the Department of Defense. Any of those that they ask us to do as a land component of the Joint Force, our Army, anything that they ask us to execute. And to that end, our Army leadership has recruited, tailored, equipped, and organized the right medical team needed to provide the right capability to support the Army as it executes its unified land operations from the garrison to the deployed environment. It's all about the team. And so I want to highlight one of the teams that enables Army medicine to perform one of our missions, and that's to promote and to restore wellness. And that's the Army Wellness Center. Next slide, please. So the Army Wellness Centers are performance triad platforms that are focused on sleep, activity, and nutrition. Those services that are designed to build and sustain good health and improve the overall healthy lifestyles of our soldiers, family members, retirees, and Department of the Army civilians. And I tell you, I have to pause here to just say I really owe a debt of gratitude to my predecessor, General Patty Horoho. Those of you who know her, what an awesome leader she was, and for her to introduce just that very elegant sleep nutrition activity that's taken off now, not just to be a medical priority, but an Army priority. So she's really done a lot to further focus on wellness, and so I just want to publicly thank her here because she really started us off on a path that we're taking on to the next level. And real quick story: I was in Vicenza, Italy, checking out of the IHG visitor center, the visitors' quarters there, and at the bottom of the receipt it had, sleep nutrition activity performance trial. So I took a picture, and so the person thought I was a bit strange, so I was actually taking a photo with my phone so I could email it to General Horoho just to let her know that now she has really perpetuated this all throughout. So, and I'm proud here to be able to take it to the next level, and I'm really proud of how our Army has embraced it to improve the health and wellness. And so our Army Wellness Centers are all part of that. And the aim is to promote wellness by helping our families address lifestyle changes in areas that affect both short and long-term health, reaching people where they live, where they work, where they relax, where they rest, everywhere. So our wellness centers empower the members of our Army family to set their own goals for their health and then to achieve them. So many members of our Army family struggle with the same issues that our civilian community does, and that's maintaining a healthy weight, tobacco cessation, or just maintaining fitness in general. I mean, trying to find time to work out, trying to find time to do all the things we know we have to do. But our wellness centers can help us get on the path to doing that. Our health educators in the wellness centers will work with our families to provide tools to address lifestyle behavior and behaviors to help manage positive changes over time. Our programs are evidence-based, and they incorporate user-friendly technology to ensure successful achievement of goals. And accessing the wellness centers especially allows medical providers to have direction and oversight of patient progress, and also to provide a coordinated care effort so they can manage their treatment protocols with the programs being put together by the wellness center. So it allows for a coordinated effort. And the wellness center staff also assist our family members in setting goals with individualized programs and advancing health coaching to put them on the path, again, to achieve better health, because that's what we're all about for this. And our wellness centers are staffed by very highly trained and credentialed health educators. They utilize advanced technologies such as metabolic testing, the bod pod. Who's familiar with that? Yeah, the bod pod. I got into that, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get back in that one for a while. But really, it measures the exact caloric, content that you need to maintain a healthy and appropriate weight. And they also measure other assessments, such as gait analysis, all those different things to help, again, all of it to help your a comprehensive prevention program that could either help stop disease, prevent it from ever happening. It prevents injury and disability before it occurs, because that's what it's all about, trying to prevent those injuries before they become chronic and require treatment. And although referrals can be made to the Wellness Center by medical providers or unit commanders, we also make it as easy as possible for our family members to walk in as self-referrals. And we reach out to our families to promote awareness of the wellness centers, and I do that with my Command Sergeant Major when we go to the PCC. We talk about the wellness centers and how to access that. But I also ask you to help to make sure that our Army families know that our wellness centers are available to them, not just active duty, because the health of our families really does take a team. Next slide, please. So we have over 35 Army wellness centers on or near garrisons around the globe to provide easy access, and we'll be opening more in the future. And our most recent wellness center opened at Fort Eustis just last month. Fort Eustis, all right, there's a Fort Eustis team over there. And so additionally, we're exploring opportunities also to use the mobile platforms to expand access and allowing increased availability to our Army National Guard and our reserve soldiers and families. Because I know a lot of these things I say, I can see some of our reserve colleagues saying, gosh, that's great, but if you're not around an installation, you really can't access those. So we're looking at ways to put as much as we can like on a mobile platform to go to drill sites, and also we've got applications for your phone that have, of course, not a lot of the equipment that's needed to do the analysis, but a lot of the educational materials, menus and things like that that are free apps put together by the Performance Triad team that you can download and at least have that educational piece while we're working on better solutions to better service our Guard and Reserve colleagues. And so I encourage you to download those apps because they really have got some good information on there. Now, 2 weeks ago, I hosted some representatives of our military and veteran service organizations. And I'd like to share with you some of the information that we've discussed with them here today, because it was really great dialogue with them, and they said that was great information for them, so I want to make sure that you have this as well. Army Medicine's uncompromising commitment to quality of care and patient safety is essential to making sure that we maintain our medical and health readiness of our total Army, but it's also vital for the wellness of our families. And so our soldiers, families, and retirees definitely deserve the best, and we are focused on providing the highest quality medical support, again, to all of those that are entrusted to our care. So on the next slide, please, as part of our commitment to excellence, we measure our outcomes and our data on quality, safety, all of those against our civilian benchmarks, because a lot of times I get questions of how do we know we have good quality care? I know it because, I'm the MedCom commander and I'm the Surgeon General. I'm proud of my team. That's all great, but is there anything quantifiable that we can actually show the data and statistics? And I'm glad to say the answer is a resounding yes. And you'd be really happy to hear some of the information. So I'm going to share just some of it with you here. So again, as part of our commitment to excellence, we measure our outcomes against our national benchmarks, and that's administered by the National Committee for Quality Assurance that measures performance on quality of care and services and compliance against the Joint Commission, which is a body that looks at and evaluates, assesses health care treatment facilities all across our nation. So we are subject to the same review and assessment as our civilian counterparts. And I'm happy to say as well, we do very well. 100% of our facilities are Joint Commission accredited. So that kind of gives you one data point of the level of quality that we have. In addition, the Army Medicine uses the American College of Surgeons National Surgical Quality Improvement Program, that's a mouthful, we call it's the NSQIP, as a measuring tool to improve our surgical quality. And that, again, is looking at all of our facilities that do provide surgical capability. I understand that all of them don't, but the ones that do, 100% of them are evaluated using these standards. So about 700, which is about 13% of our U.S. hospitals actually participate in this NSQIP. So overall, again, 100% of ours participate, and we're actually comparing ourselves to those who choose to share their data. So again, most people that don't have great data aren't going to share it, so we are comparing ourselves to just the top hospitals that participate across the nation. And so we are, again, comparing ourselves to those, and not only do we compare favorably, but recently the team at Brooke Army Medical Center even received a Meritorious Achievement Award from the American College of Surgeons. And so that's a great news story. Again, comparing ourselves to the very top performers in our entire nation. So, and the names that you recommend with the names that you will recognize, the Johns Hopkins, those that have that are very high quality healthcare organizations in our civilian sector. So that's just again, this slide just shows that green, downward trend is better, going towards green is better. And so again, that shows where we are in relation to those areas. Next slide, please. So a second area of interest, not just to our military and veteran organizations, but I think to all of us, is the easy and convenient access to care. Because that's another thing that we heard about, some of the concerns about how easy it was to access care in our treatment facilities. And so beginning in December of 2015, when I actually became the Commanding General of MedCom and Surgeon General, I directed changes to our policies related to access. And as a result of the hard work of a dedicated team, and some members are sitting right here in this room that did the hard work, patients at Army MTFs can now make appointments out 6 months out. Primary care is now available during every training holiday, and we have adjusted and extended clinic hours to accommodate appointments that are more convenient to our patients. These and other administrative adjustments have increased the number of our annual primary care appointments to about 680,000. That's a lot of appointments if you think about it annually. 37% increase in the availability of acute appointments. And although these are remarkable improvements, we continue to assess more ways to actually even provide better access, provide availability to those that want health care when they need it. And we want our families also to be as healthy as possible. But when they need to be restored to health, we're doing everything we can to ensure they're receiving the care that they need as easy as possible as well. So not only acute appointments, but all the appointments of all those. And we're doing this all while responding to, while the MTF commanders are responding to the requests and the tailoring services to the senior commanders when they may ask for specific functions and specific capabilities unique to their installations. Again, we want to be responsive to our patients and to our commanders, those that we are responsible to. Next slide, please. And a third issue that we discussed with our team there, with the representatives, is our behavioral health system of care. And again, all of you know this is an extremely important topic and issue for all of us, not just in the military, but also in our nation. So the behavioral health care of our soldiers and our family members is extremely important. And so access to behavioral health care is a key to maintaining wellness as well. It's not just to treat an acute illness, it's to maintain a long-term sense of wellness and well-being. So we know that about 58% of our soldiers are married and about 47% of them have children. And we also know that it's not just our soldiers who are experiencing mental health challenges, it's our family members who are subject to a myriad of stressors. Our children are required to move and change schools, make new friends, all of this, and sometimes doing this while one or both of their parents are deployed. That's a lot to ask. Spouses and partners face challenges of finding new jobs, caring for children, attending to aging parents, maintaining a household while worrying over the safety and well-being of their deployed spouse. That's a lot to ask of our families. And research has demonstrated that combat deployments have had a negative impact on up to 30% of family members when we actually look at the numbers. And Army medicine recognizes these unique stressors, and we've integrated behavioral health with primary care in our outpatient-centered medical homes that deliver care to our active duty and our family members, as well as also as a way to screen and treat many routine behavioral health problems. So rather than wait to be referred, we have our primary care, our behavioral health right there with primary care, so you can take care of things right at the point of need. We also are expanding assets using teleconsultation and virtual health platforms. And our telebehavioral health is very, very popular with our younger population. I guess they're used to the technology. The technology, talking to someone via virtual is actually something that they really prefer. And I noticed that in a study we did in Europe when there was a choice between seeing a live person or virtual health, and the lines were about the same size, so it wasn't about the line, and they actually chose the virtual health and thought that was really a positive way to get care and to get health and to get their behavioral health. We also offer services, behavioral health services to support many of our military children in schools. And that's been a really very well-received program of having behavioral health right there in the school, so children don't have to leave leave their schools, and either half day or a full day out of classes, just, the parent picking them up, taking them to the hospital or taking them to the clinic. They can actually get those services right there in the classroom setting or in the nurse's office setting, without having to worry about the stigma of being picked up to be taken to their appointment. They can just go right to the school nurse and get the treatment right there. And also, the Child and Family Behavioral Health System is a comprehensive behavioral health model that emphasizes the public health approach, collaborating and integrating with our Army Medical Home, and also optimizing delivery of child and family behavioral health care. And it also increases access, as I mentioned before, to evidence-based clinical practices, value-based outcome, and delivering care where the family needs it, right there, close to their school and close to where they live and work. And so how do we know our patients are actually getting better? So there's a behavioral health data portal survey that actually enables real-time feedback and informed care, and actually provides data to promote improvement at the enterprise level. This is focused on clinical outcome metrics. And historically, measurement-based care has not existed on this scale. And this is a Army-developed system that represents a novel, real-time standardized approach to demonstrate individual and population health improvement from the enterprise level all the way down to the MTF provider. And again, this is a great tool to make sure that we understand and know if individuals are actually getting better based upon the interventions that are made. And so in summary, Army Medicine continues to implement and sustain this behavioral health system of care to generate readiness and also to support recovery throughout all areas. And I've got several behavioral health experts here that can provide more details on that if there are any questions. And the next slide, please. All righty, and one thing I'd like to just shift to really quick, just quickly, and conclude my remarks here with a few comments on the national opioid crisis. And I know there's not probably one person in this room who hasn't heard about that or potentially have been personally touched by this crisis that's in our nation. And then although I speak here for Army Medicine, I recognize that this addiction problem recognizes no distinction between those who wear the uniform and those who do not. It's not unique to the military. Army Medicine has been looking really closely in developing a strategy for pain management for more than a decade. We recognize that there are complex clinical and social consequences with chronic pain, and we are deeply concerned about the reduced quality of life for those who abuse opioids and the consequences for them, for their families, their friends, their communities. So let me provide some background on from the Army Medicine perspective. So opioid use peaked in the Army in about 2012. And fortunately, through a concerted effort to address this issue, there was a reduction of more than 19% in the total number of soldiers who were given one or more opioid prescriptions over the next 4 years. So the chronic use of opioids, defined as those receiving at least 90 days of opioids in a 180-day period, peaked well before that in 2007. And so it decreased 9% between 2007 and 2012. So again, a downward use of that within our ranks, which is, again, a good news story. It's not the end of the story, but at least there's an attempt to try to improve and use other alternative methods than opioids in treating pain. And so Army Medicine, again, focused awareness and attention and improvement efforts on prescribing opioids, and then contrast this to the worsening trends that currently exist in our nation. And so what we've done in Army Medicine, in 2010, we had a Army Pain Management Task Force. It was convened. There was 109 pain management recommendations in order to provide a standardized vision and approach to pain management to optimize the care of our soldiers and our families. And so the recommendations were divided into 4 areas. And one was to build a full spectrum of best practices for a continuum of acute and chronic pain care based upon the best evidence available all throughout the medical practice. The second was to provide tools and an infrastructure that support and encourage practice and research advancement in pain management to get after other alternatives to, again, reaching for the prescription pad and prescribing opioids. Then we focused on the service member and the family on this, and then we also synchronized a culture of pain awareness, education, and then proactive intervention. So the task force identified some changes in standards, data collection, personnel use, and numerous other areas of improvement. And again, a lot of these improvements are still underway, but like I said before, we're not resting on our laurels. We're not going to be happy until we get this down as close to zero as we can. And so again, more awareness efforts. September was the Pain Awareness Month campaigns, and so the more that we can do this, the more that we can actually get down to zero. And we actually had to have, each provider had to take a 2-hour course in this on prescribing, and the dangers of prescribing opioids and the best practices in that. And I, as a provider, actually went online and took the course myself. It's that important. And so, again, we continue to strive using other types of, Tai Chi, acupuncture, yoga, all these other types of, alternative mechanisms and methods to help reduce stress, to help reduce pain, and again, to try to have another option other than opioid use. And hopefully we'll win the battle. It's going to be a long one, and I think our nation's in a long one as well, but as much as we can do to work together to get after this, I think it's going to benefit us all. And so what I'd like to do is conclude with a short video. We talked about wellness, how to improve health, and so I'll roll a short video here, and then I'll step off to allow the next speaker to begin.
What will your last 10 years look like? Will you be quick enough for a game of tag with your grandchild? Strong enough to embrace every moment? Will you grow old with vitality? Or get old with disease? It's time to decide. The average Canadian will spend their last 10 years in sickness. Change your future at makehealthlast.ca.
So I tell you, this one always hits me because I know what side of the video I want to be on. And I know what side of the video that each one of my members of the Army Medicine team wants each and every one of you to be on. And that's the one where we have vitality and health. And our Army, and getting after wellness, making sure that we have a good foundation and just the performance triad, making sure that we have great behavioral health assets to ensure that we take care of those stressors that can also affect your health long term, to make sure we have the right access to all of our care, right access to the care that you need to make sure that we can keep you healthy, both primary care and specialty care. That's exactly what we're here for. And I tell you, it was interesting in his remarks this morning, and those of you who heard Secretary Mattis, it's always a treat to hear him speak. He referenced a reply from Albert Einstein when he was asked what he would do if he had only 1 hour to solve, basically to save the world from a very complex problem. And he said that he would spend 55 minutes defining the problem. It's that important. And then the 5 minutes, the rest of the 5 minutes actually fixing it. And it really hit me when he mentioned that. So what does that mean for me and my Army Medicine team? So if defining the problem is the main part of it before you start rushing into something, I think for us, that's the same thing. Defining what is it that we want? What is it that we want to do for our health? How do we define the best way to take care of our family members and our soldiers, all those entrusted to our care? And that's what we've been doing, and that's what we try to do in Army Medicine, carefully analyzing what we must do to support and to solve the complex problems of health of all those entrusted to our care. It's going to take more than 55 minutes, right? So we've been around since 1775, but the balance, I believe, is right. Trying to make sure that we are really looking at how do we get after those really complex problems. and spend the bulk of the time, getting after it, defining it. What do we want to fix? What do we want to do? What do we want to look like? What do we want to make sure that our soldiers, family members, the wellness part of it, what is that going to look like for our future? And I think that will get us to the point where we can come up with some very cogent, well thought out solutions to ensure that we're all on the left side of that photo when we, or that video when we finish. So I would like to thank each and every one of you for all of your kind attention here, and may God bless each and every one of you, bless our soldiers, our families, our nation. We're one team with one purpose, and I look forward later to your questions. Thanks so much.
General West, that was very, very helpful and informative. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a 3-minute stretch break, everyone. I know you've asked me for those before. So a 3-minute stretch break while we bring up the panel. And now we have the great honor of bringing up on our stage a panel of distinguished family members and Army program leaders, as well as national leaders. This panel will be moderated by a very talented lawyer and Army spouse, Mrs. Josie Beats. Josie Beats served as the 2016-17 president of the Military Spouse JD Network. She's been involved with MSJDN as a member since late 2011, including the launch of Justice for Military Families program, which was the first national military program to serve not just the service member, but the families as well. She previously served as a public policy coordinator for the Tennessee Bar Association, managing development of legislation and public policy positions affecting law and the legal profession. This is the part that I love the best. She is a member of the Louisiana State Bar Association, the Tennessee Bar Association, the American Bar Association, the National Association of Bar Executives, the Women's Bar Association of DC, and an attorney member of the National Association of Women Judges. She is married to an Army officer, I think he's a JAG, stationed at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and is a mom to 2 amazing kids. Ladies and gentlemen, my very good friend, Josie Beats.
Thank you, Patty, for that kind introduction. I am the proud Army spouse to Major Sean Zetab, who about 45 minutes ago, as we were sitting upstairs, said, "Now, why are you here again today?" Proving that communication is very important in a marriage and part of your wellness journey. And then I said, "Honey, I'm moderating a panel about health and wellness." And he said, "Really?" And what I'm going to assume he meant to say was, "Of course, honey, of course you are moderating this panel. In fact, you should be running the panel. You should be the only speaker because you are such an expert in maintaining the health and wellness of our military family." But as we were sitting around a table where my 2 lovely children were fighting over a pack of Skittles, ignoring the cheese pizzas I had brought for them for lunch, I'm going to assume that perhaps he was thinking differently. I am so excited to be here with you today to talk about warrior and family wellness. It takes a team. We have an amazing panel for you today. I hope you will be engaged with our panelists and ask lots of questions. As health and wellness is a journey, I today am your Uber driver, hoping to learn along the way as well. I'm going to get us to our destination where we will have more tools in our health and wellness toolbox from hearing from these leaders in our community. First, I'm going to introduce our panelists. And then you'll hear a little bit from each of them. Then we will discuss the resources that are available to our military families and then open it up to questions from you all. First, our distinguished panelists. Marianne Campo is a proud Army wife with 18 years public health experience, including a fellowship at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the United Nations World Health Organization. Since 2008, Marianne has worked with MEDCOM and MCOM, and in 2015, she joined the Surgeon General's Commander Initiatives Group, where she became a dedicated advocate for military caregivers. She recently transitioned to the Army Public Health Center, where she continues her work improving the lives of military caregivers. Amy Moore, U.S. Army retired, is the spouse of Colonel James Moore. Colonel Moore died on November 29, 2004, as the result of a Black Hawk helicopter accident outside of Fort Hood, Texas, along with 6 other soldiers. Colonel and Mrs. Moore have 2 children, Megan Moore, a law student at Southern Methodist University, and U.S. Army Second Lieutenant Sean Moore. Amy is a champion of surviving children's educational benefits, including the Marine Gunnery Sergeant John David Fry Scholarship. She remains very active with her local Survivor Outreach Services office and shares her experiences with casualty assistance officers and casualty notification officer training at her local installation. Chaplain Joe Melvin is the Fort Belvoir Garrison Chaplain, where he started there in July 2017. He most recently served as Command Chaplain for Army South from May 2015, and previously as Director of Soldier and Family Ministry at the Office of the Army Chief of Chaplains beginning in 2012. He served as the IMCOM Soldier and Family Ministry Chaplain in 2011-2012, and was the Family and NWR Command Chaplain from July 2010. Rachel O'Hearn is the Executive Director of Returning Heroes Home, a nonprofit that works to provide a home-like atmosphere and place of healing, promoting family and social interactions for wounded, ill, and injured warriors and their family members, while receiving medical treatment at Joint Base Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. Rachel holds a Master of Social Work from the University of Southern California, a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Texas and A&M University, and a certificate in Nonprofit Executive Management from Georgetown University. She and her husband Larkin, a triple amputee and retired Army officer, enjoy biking the river extension, sampling chips and salsa, which I co-sign, and cheering for the Spurs. Colonel Miguel Howe, U.S. Army, retired, is the inaugural April and J. Graham Fellow of the Military Service Initiative at the George W. Bush Institute. As an endowed fellow, Colonel Howe represents the Bush Institute's work to improve the transition of post-9/11 veterans to civilian life and to foster veteran leadership to enhance our businesses, communities, and nation. In this role, he advocates for post-9/11 veterans and builds awareness for the issues that affect their transitions with a focus on employment, education, and health and well-being. Thank you all for being here today. With our introductions out of the way, we will start with our first panelist, Mary Ann Campano. Thank you.
Got it, no problem. Is this on? Yes, okay, great. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. It is truly an honor to be part of this incredible panel and to be able to share with you some Army Public Health and Army Wellness resources. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my wellness journey with horses. I have been riding almost every day for the last 40 years. By the time I was a sophomore in college, I knew that I wanted to be a horse trainer. And I had the great opportunity to study with a member of the United States Equestrian Team. So when I graduated from school, I was able to actually pursue that dream. And it was wonderful until I had an accident at age 27. It was a banana peel slip. I was on a young horse, all 4 legs went out to one side. And I woke up in the ambulance with double vision and a serious TBI and numerous broken bones. And so the recovery took some time. And also during that recovery, at age 27, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. But in spite of all of these medical hurdles, what was the biggest barrier for me to get back onto my journey to wellness was losing that sense of purpose. Because horses, really all animals, they're incredible. They don't fret about the past or worry about the future. They're really in the moment. And if you let them, they'll bring you into that moment with them. So it was a really rewarding career. And in spite of having all of these great medical specialists help me back to my wellness, it actually would have been someone like Chaplain Melvin or a chaplain probably who could have helped me rediscover a new sense of purpose. But I eventually found my way. I was an AmeriCorps member and a caseworker, and was helping in a little community resource center, and I loved my job. And through that, then I got back to exercising, even riding some of my calm horses, really kind of living the performance triad, sleeping better, managing my diabetes better, eating better. Everything came together, and I really was the best version of myself. And I share this journey with you, this personal journey of mine, because I feel like each of our health journeys is very individual, and for some people I know it's going to concentrate around that physical aspect, but for me, it was really getting that sense of purpose back. And that's why, next slide, please. I'm really excited to talk to you about the Community Resource Guide, because I think Army Public Health Center really recognizes that it does take a team to really address all the different dimensions of health. And what they've done with this is create a website and an app where you can go and get information across 50 installations in one really user-friendly platform, and you can search by subject or the name of the agency, and it's really, truly a one-stop shop for creating this inventory of all community resources. And I'll tell you, as an Army wife of 11 and a half years, we've PCS'd 5 times, and I'm definitely going here next time we PCS, because I want to know ahead of time. I always feel like I'm scrambling when I get someplace new. So this is just such a great tool to consolidate all the great resources we have. And you can go to your app store and just type in Community Resource Guide and get that app, or go to the website that's there. Next slide, please. In the Army Wellness Centers, well, I know General West did a great job and spoke eloquently about our Army Wellness Centers, but I think it's worth mentioning again because I love them. This is really a gold standard, top tier mechanism to help us really optimize our health and well-being. It combines these passionate health educators who are highly skilled, highly credentialed, with the latest and greatest in technology. General West mentioned the BOD Pod, but they do all sorts of testing around even stress management, body composition, metabolic testing. And the great thing is they will give you, as you leave, a course of action to take, a very palpable way to move forward. Next slide, please. And again, General West touched on this, but I just want to say that in addition to that focus on sleep, physical activity, and nutrition, I love the performance triad, because when I'm well rested and well nourished and physically active, I know that I can be at my best, that I think clearly, and my thoughts and my feelings I can process the best. And finally, I'm very short on time here, about a program that I'm absolutely passionate about and hopefully can weave later in this conversation and talk about it more. But it's the Military Caregiver Heart of Recovery Initiative. And I just want to say that in the last 2 years, we've been able to consolidate a lot of different organizations across the Army to prioritize this population who take care of our wounded, ill, and injured soldiers, and it's really been an honor to be part of it. So thank you all for this opportunity to share programs I'm so passionate about.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Our next panelist is Amy Moore.
Good afternoon. To all the surviving family members and to those who have assisted surviving family members in their walks, my heart goes out to you. My husband, Jim, was killed in a helicopter crash on November 29th, 2004. He and 6 other men were in the helicopter that hit a guy wire in inclement weather. It's my honor to be here to speak with you about our road to wellness in wake of the tragedy. At the time, our children, Megan and Sean, were 13 and 10, and I remember upon notification as a mom, the first thing that I thought about was them, because it's an innocence lost. It was an event that I could not control, and you feel a bit helpless, but at the same time, you realize you've got to be strong for your children. And at that point, I just realized that I was going to be strong and I was going to provide them with the best childhood possible in spite of losing their dad at such a young age. I mean, my parents I had for 50 years, over 50 years. So when I think about our road to wellness, certain things come to my mind, and I'm going to talk about 4 of them: communication, family and friends, and routine. Communication was always important in our family, and it proved to be our saving grace after the accident, because the kids and I were able to share with each other, share with family, share with friends, stories of Jim. So right away, people were comfortable in talking about Jim. And that was so important because he continued to be a presence in our lives. As far as family and friends, our Army family kicked right into gear, Fort Hood. We were just blessed with a wonderful military and outside of Fort Hood, the civilian community. With our family, we're blessed that on both sides of Jim's family and my family are very close, so they enveloped us in love from the very beginning. I think the part that became the hardest for us is that we were a very independent and private family, and when something like that happens, it's very public, and you also have to learn to ask for help. And we had lived in government quarters for many years. That's all the kids knew. And so one of their first questions was, are we going to be able to continue our school year at Fort Hood? And I was able to tell them, yes, absolutely you will. We'll finish the school year. And then I had to find a place to live. And so I was led to look in the Tidewater, Hampton Roads area of Virginia. And I reached out to neighbors. Jim and I had lived there as newlyweds. That's where Megan was born. And I reached out to neighbors that still live across the street from the only house we ever owned and sold, and asked my friends to do the legwork looking at schools. Those of you who have moved, that was always my biggest stressor with schools. And now I was looking at a community where Sean would start middle school, Megan would start high school, and they would be going there under very different circumstances than the moves they had had in the past. So they did the legwork for me, and I was able to, my parents came in April of 2005, and I was able to find a house that has become our home for the last 12 years. As far as friends, we are just blessed with friends that we've had from childhood, but primarily our Army friends. And when we were in Fort Hood, while the spouses deployed forward, the husbands in this case deployed forward, those of us manning the home front became very close. And we're getting ready, we have a girls' weekend, and we're getting ready to go on our 11th girls' weekend. And as much as those are very important to me because it gave me an opportunity to have my parents come in and stay with the kids and I could go away because all of a sudden I was a single parent. As much as it was as important to me, it was important for my friends to see that we were okay, that the Moores were going to be okay. We chose to live in an area, or I chose to live in an area that was had a very high military concentration, and that's why we came to the Hampton Roads area. And I have to say it was kind of the familiar with the unfamiliar in that we were a military family, but we weren't in the military anymore. But when we first moved, the kids and I would go up to the PX or go up to the commissary, and sometimes they would just say, "Mom, can we just go drive through a housing area?" It was very important to them to have that familiarity. And it also was important to me to be able to plug into a military community. I see many of my Fort Eustis friends here in the audience. And so to sum it up, because I'm out of time, the 4 things that come to my mind is our communication, family and friends, and routine. I didn't get to routine, but routine was very important to us as far as being, giving us a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos after the accident. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Chaplain Joe Melvin.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here today. I'm the Fort Belvoir Garrison Chaplain, but also am the Family Life Advisor to the Chief of Chaplains. So on behalf of Chaplain Major General Hurley, good afternoon as well. And what I wanted to just share a little bit about the executive wellness or the wellness that the Chaplain Corps brings. Chaplains are placed throughout the Army, throughout all ranks of the Army, from the life cycle beginning at battalion all the way up to general officer and general staff, to help ensure that each person is able to practice the freedom of religion, and to be able to help service members and family members in either coming to grips with, staying connected with, or reconnecting with purpose in life. And so as we work towards wellness, as Lieutenant General West said, we carry the spiritual aspect of the wellness program on behalf of the Chief Staff of the Army. Scientific studies over the past 20 years have shown that there's a consistent personal self-reflection that can help reduce stress, anxiety, depression, and substance abuse, and have a significant positive impact on well-being. And so that's a focus that we deal with, again, throughout the entire life cycle, whether we're deployed or we're working in garrison. As we work with the staff and with the military community, our focus continues to be around helping people connect with their fundamental belief system, whether they're executive leaders or they're battalion leaders, whether they're the most senior people in the Army or they're the privates who are just coming in and trying to come to grips with a new life that they've never faced before. And so as we work through the process of trying to support the Army and the Army system, our focus is based on some of the work of Dr. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist who had conducted and analyzed brain scans of people in prayer and meditation. Dr. Newberg says that our brains are set up in such a way that God and religion become among the most powerful tools for helping the brain to do its thing, which is self-maintenance and self-transcendence. A belief in God and religious practice isn't necessary for the chaplain corps to be of support to you, nor is it necessary for the individual to be able to have healthy self-reflection, and yet the chaplain corps is continually helping everyone, again, from the junior to the senior, to come to connection with their fundamental belief system. Many of you are familiar with the programs that we offer, whether it's Strong Bonds, in order to enhance the relationships that you might be in, or to enhance your ability to deal with stress and the daily routines of military life, or getting into the daily routines of military life. Or if it's the programs that are on garrison at Fort Belvoir we're using as an example, we have literally thousands of people pass through the doors of our facilities on a weekly basis in order to either come into connection again with God, to be able to come in connection with their relationship, whether it's family or couple counseling, in order to enhance those relationships and work in a fashion that helps them to become healthier overall in their ability to perform their mission, and healthier overall as citizens of the United States, to be able to function together and to be able to work in the teams where they're going to find themselves as they serve in the military. So we provide, again, the religious services. We provide youth services, whether it's the teen-based youth services or even younger than that. We provide those opportunities for community and the development of community. As was so eloquently stated before, when we travel, we leave behind many of our friends and we develop community where we go in the military. And that's an important aspect of, I think, what the Chaplain Corps brings, is the ability to develop the community and to work with the community, whether we're working unilaterally in the sense of providing religious support, or we're working in cohort with the ACS or the other agencies throughout the garrison or throughout the Army, in order to help enhance the lifestyle and the life capability, the life force of the individuals that participate in our military. And with that, I will pause and say thank you for this opportunity and pass my time. I yield my time to the ladies.
Thank you, Chaplain. Next, we have Rachel O'Hearn.
Good afternoon. I want to thank Patty for inviting me here to be a part of this panel. That's really exciting. As Josie mentioned in my introduction, my husband is a triple amputee, and he medically retired from the Army this spring, which makes me an Army veteran spouse, which I'm very happy about. But Patty asked me to share a little bit from the family support perspective on wellness and resilience, and kind of what that looked like during our journey, and kind of separately and together. So he was injured in southern Afghanistan New Year's Eve, actually, 2010 into 11. So it gets kind of tricky depending on which side of the date line you were on. And he'd actually been home about a month earlier on mid-tour leave. He'd been deployed with the 101st, and we had done a 5K fun run in Clarksville, Tennessee. Some of you may have spent time there and done this same fun run. You get to dress to theme, which is very exciting. So I had a Christmas tree headband or hat of some sort, and he had a flashing red nose and laughed a lot. I think we both medaled, maybe. So that was kind of where we were coming from. And then, we found ourselves in these hospital rooms all over the world. I met him in Germany, and we hung out for a few hours in Andrews on the way back to Texas. It eventually ended up at Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam Houston, which happened to be under renovation at the time. It was transitioning to joint, and I still don't really understand how all of that worked. But at the time, there was no hot food to be had when I was able to get to it. So I ate a lot of peanut butter and jelly and chocolate chip cookies or chocolate cake or whatever was available in this little grab-and-go thing in the basement. And this seemed like a good idea at the time because it took care of the nutrition thing. There was some food. And, chocolate cake is always a good plan when you're trying to coordinate for the next surgery. But the problem with that plan, as it turned out, I was also sleeping at the hospital for a few weeks because I have trust and control issues and wanted to chat with all of the providers. And so I was always wearing yoga pants. So it did not come to my attention until I went to put on real pants a few months later that perhaps I had lost some fitness ground. In the meantime, need to sort that out. So, he was still in therapy at the Center for the Intrepid, and if you've not been to San Antonio, you really should. It's a miraculous place. And I was pushing the wheelchair sometimes when I was permitted, and still needed. So I didn't feel like I could go whatever celebrity trainers do. I looked up Wonder Woman's workout 3 hours a day for 6 months. Not in the cards. So I find a kettlebell because I figured this is something that I can do. We were living in a hotel on the hospital annex, and I'm like, oh, I love kettlebells. This will work out fine, and it did. But it was something that I had to be very purposeful about and set time aside for, and sometimes skip things like laundry, and really get that as a priority for me. So while that was going on, we were also dealing with, General West talked about some pain management challenges and nutrition and helping him, in that family support member capacity. And Marianne and I were actually talking about, do I consider myself a caregiver or a family support member? And, I think at that time, caregiver, because that was the Florence Nightingale season with the wound care and the medication counting and all of that. And I think of really, at this point, he's phenomenal and remarkable and walks every day and drives and all manner of other terrifying things we shouldn't think about for too long because the physics is concerning. And so, but in that family support kind of role, looking at like, okay, we've got some pain management issues. We've got a lot of medication on board here. What are some things that we can do to manage this, from a hotel room where we have no kitchen? There aren't many, but there are some. And there are some things that you can put on the board and you can put on the wall to work towards. We had done that 5K together right before he was injured, and that had been something that we had enjoyed. That's not going to happen at this point, right? But he found hand biking very quickly after he was injured. I actually remember sending his trauma surgeon in Germany a picture of him hand biking in April. So it was very quick, and so I started biking, which I hadn't done since I was, 7, however old you are when you bike. But it was a great thing that we could do together where we could be outside. I'm a big believer in getting fresh air and getting out of the hospital. And so those were some things that we managed to kind of find together and work towards. Oh man, and here I thought I was going to be the quick one. I get his extra time too, right? So those are kind of my things, work toward goals that are manageable. And that are important to you, that are things that you care about. I think a lot of people have a tendency to try to fit themselves into other molds and do what other people tell them to, and that just didn't work well for me. So that was my experience kind of in that recovery and building to a long-term sustainable place. And with that, Miguel, or Josie, I guess.
Thank you, Rachel. Next, we'll have, thank you. Next, we have Colonel Howe.
These are 4 stories that are very, very challenging to follow, for sure, but I'll try to bring up the rear of the patrol. I am Miguel Howe, and I am a soldier for life. I am also the proud husband of an Army spouse for life, Erica, who also continues to serve Army families to this day as a regional director for a great nonprofit, Operation Homefront. I am both the son and the son-in-law of Vietnam veterans and Army Soldiers for Life. And as of 6 weeks ago, I am now the father of an Army Soldier for Life. About 32 years ago this month, my father called me into his study and said, "Son, what are your plans?" And I said, "Dad, I want to go to college." And he said, "That's a great idea. How do you plan on paying for that?" And so I soon found myself at West Point and eventually commissioned in the Army. I fancied myself as a five and fly guy. But as all of you, I absolutely fell in love with the Army, with the lifestyle, with the people, with the sense of purpose and community and belonging and adventure and rigor. I loved it. And so Eric and I were married right before I reported to the 7th Special Forces Group, and so then spent the first 2.5 of our 5 years married deployed throughout Latin America, not counting pre-mission training. During each of those deployments, all 3 members of my family, Erica, our son Nicholas, and our daughter Haley, faced significant health challenges. And so we made the determination at that time that it was best to begin our transition into civilian life. But then 9/11 happened. And so all of us felt that call of duty to continue to serve during a time of war. And so that's exactly what we did for the next 12 years. And like most of you in this room, spending time in Iraq and Afghanistan, a penance tour and recruiting command, and we retired out of the 7th Special Forces Group in 2013. And so not only our own personal wellness journey as a family, but over those past 12 years, watching all of our soldiers and their families grapple with all 6 spheres of wellness: physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, and financial well-being. And so when I retired and an opportunity I could not refuse presented itself, the opportunity to continue to serve our soldiers and their families and our 43rd Commander-in-Chief as the 2nd Director of the Military Service Initiative, following another great soldier for life, Colonel Andres. His wife Cheryl is joining us here today. So I began that work, begun by Colonel Andres, as the Director of the Military Service Initiative at the George W. Bush Institute in Dallas, Texas. And at the Bush Institute, on behalf of President and Mrs. Bush, we are focused on fostering a successful transition and reintegration from military service to civilian life for all of our nation's military, veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors. And we define a successful transition as achieving optimal health and well-being and leveraging meaningful education and employment opportunities. And so we have 4 programs to that end in partnership with all branches of the service, all of our federal agencies, the business, higher education, and nonprofit communities. We work on an employment and education program. Our health and well-being program comprises our Warrior Wellness Alliance to address those invisible wounds of war, traumatic brain injury, and psychological health conditions like post-traumatic stress, depression, and anxiety disorder. We also have a military adaptive sports and peer network program, Team 43. Just this past weekend, President and Mrs. Bush hosted 52 great warrior families out at the ranch for the 7th annual W100 bike ride. And our 4th program is what we refer to as collective impact. It is how do we leverage, how do we achieve optimal efficiency through coordination, collaboration, and synchronization of effort of all of those sectors. And so most recently in June, we hosted a national convening to that end called Stand 2, where 300 partner organizations came together to commit to achieving optimal health and well-being and leveraging meaningful education and employment opportunities for all of our nation's soldiers and their families, for all members of all branches of the service and their families. And so I am a soldier for life. Erica is an Army spouse for life. And so not only is this our life's work, but as you heard, as the father of a soldier for life, it is deeply, deeply personal and meaningful, and I am honored to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists for sharing their story. Now we will move into our moderated Q&A, where I get to take advantage of the knowledge of these amazing experts for my own personal use. Hopefully you will also find it entertaining and informative. My first question is for Mary Ann, actually, and I want to ask you about the Heart of Recovery program, and specifically about, I am always, I want to make sure we're not just providing our caregivers with tools to be caregivers, but tools that will recognize them as independent folks with their own health and wellness journey to follow. And so can you tell us more about that program?
I would love to. Basically, just the mission of our program is to empower and educate and support our military caregivers to improve their health and well-being and mitigate those risks associated with caregiving. And I need to clarify, it's not a program yet. This is an initiative, and we're in the information gathering stage. So we are, and I'm so glad that General West brought this example up with what Albert Einstein had said about defining the problem. If you had 1 hour, you would spend 55 minutes defining it. And that's what we are doing right now. We're going to be launching a survey in January at Fort Sill, Fort Bragg, JBSA, JBLM, to really find what our caregivers need, to make sure that our program is responsive and relevant, and also where it should best be nested. But in terms of what could be of assistance to caregivers, there's so much in this Army community. When I landed here and went to our first installation with my husband in Yongsan, Korea, I was blown away by how many resources we have in one place. And I think for military caregivers and anyone, I mean, ACS is a wonderful hub. They can help, with pre-deployment. You can get your pots and pans there. You can get help with writing your resume. You can get financial planning. And all of these things are relevant to caregivers too, because most of them are transitioning, and we want to set them up for success. And just quickly to mention a few others, Military OneSource, a wonderful resource where you can get confidential assistance, across all the domains of help, from employment to understanding all the different transitions in the military. So those are just two, and then I think General West did a great job of really covering sort of how broad our Army medicine programs are, but those are the ones that I largely focus on. And just to say, for our military caregivers, what we want to do is just better integrate our existing capabilities. And I am very proud about this fact with this task force that we've convened with over 20 people across the Army and agencies. And while we're in this information gathering stage, we have been able to leverage these existing capabilities, like our ombudsman program and the Wounded Soldier and Family Hotline, who have now been trained on caregiver needs and are serving as a central hub to assist our caregivers. We've also integrated caregivers into the IDES process, so now that when our soldiers are going through that process at the introduction, there are questions around caregiving. And AWICKETS, a database that's used by Warrior Care and Transition, now has more data points to acknowledge and to report on caregiving. So in spite of limited resources, I'm very proud of the fact that we have brought together a lot of people who are passionate about this, and we've really leveraged what we have here existing. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mary Ann. My next question is for Amy. As I mentioned, I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old that I may sometimes struggle with maintaining health and wellness. And you talked about routine and how you kept routine up for your kids. Can you tell us a little bit more about the tools that you use to do that?
Well, when I was referring to routine, what came to mind was the fact that upon notification, I immediately asked how much time do I have before the information is made public. I needed to get to my children. They were in an elementary school and a middle school. And so I had a friend drive me, and I picked them up, and they both wanted to go to school the next day. And one thing I learned from that is that I had talked to both school counselors, and I said, under no circumstances do I want anybody, a teacher, sharing that they lost a parent at a young age. I went into mama bear mode. And the reason for that is this was their walk beginning. And as much as people, might have thought that they would help, it would hinder the progress in their walk. But they wanted to go to school. Megan made it through the whole day. Sean's counselor, who's in 5th grade, called me at mid-morning and said he needs to come home. He wants to check on you. So, we took their lead on that. But we kept the routine. Sean was in had a theater thing that he was doing, and he missed a couple of rehearsals, but he was there for opening night. And it was our normalcy. It gave us comfort to have the routine. My routine was going for a run every morning, then walking the dog, then jumping into whatever volunteer activity I had going on that day. And so I would say it just provided us with comfort because it was what we knew amidst a tragedy happening in our lives.
Thank you. Rachel, I have a question for you about PBJ and cake. Sometimes my wellness journey
Just take it slow.
Sometimes my wellness journey also includes some really helpful nutritional habits like brownie batter at 11 p.m. But how do we deal with failure? How do you bounce back from recognizing that you didn't make the best choices? How do you make that 180-degree turn?
Yeah, I maintain those were good life choices. So I'm sticking with that. No, I think an important thing, at least for me to keep in mind that's been helpful, is keeping things in context. So you have seasons where, my dad was a track coach, and he would tell me to, shorten your stride and drive your knees on hills and lengthen your stride going down hills. And I think sometimes you're just going uphill, and you just got to work with what you got. I gather there were some challenges with the Army 10-miler yesterday. Not the best day for running, but that's the day the race was. So you do what you can with what you've got, and just kind of give yourself some grace to cover the difference, should there be any,
Thank you. Chaplain Melvin, wellness is a family endeavor. And how can what tools does the Chaplain Corps have for us to make it really a across the board family involvement endeavor?
Yes, ma'am. And the Chaplain Corps is focused on, as was said earlier, body, mind, heart, spirit, and relationship. And so as we look at the family aspect, we have a variety of chaplains trained in specialties, and chaplains who are trained in clinical pastoral education that work in the hospital systems and in the medical units. And then we have family life chaplains who are trained specifically to deal with marriage and family therapy issues. And even though we approach from a pastoral care perspective, they have the tools and the capability to work with families. In fact, the development of Strong Bonds, although it started in a brigade, it was quickly adapted and adopted by the Family Life Program in order to proliferate the opportunity to sit down with couples and to be able to work with them and their families on those type of issues. The Chaplain Corps, as I said, Fort Belvoir, all of our doors are open for you. And whenever you come into the Family Life Center, the intent of that is to be able to sit down and to work on issues, either to improve a functioning relationship and get healthier, or to work on sometimes challenging relationships. And all the chaplains, whether they're family life or not, provide pastoral counseling for those sorts of things, or those sorts of relationship challenges. And just like you were asking about, if I may borrow the peanut butter and jelly, in our spiritual walk and in our relationships, I would say, it may seem like a good life choice at the time, and then you realize sometimes in hindsight it may not be. Not saying yours was, but just saying for some of the relationships. And in light of that, I would say if you're struggling either in a relationship, struggling with family issues, or struggling spiritually, rather than just kind of throwing in the towel and walking away from it, we're here to help remind you, as was well stated, give yourself some grace, reach out for some grace, and also reach out for some support, and we'll be glad to provide that for you.
Thank you. Miguel, I want you to bring this all together for us. I'm really fascinated that wellness is part of your portfolio at the Bush Institute, and that it's such a big part of what folks even outside of our own military community are concerned with. Can you tell us a little bit about why that is, and then how do we, thinking about transition, how do we carry these habits into civilian life, and how do we make partners out of our civilian community on this issue?
Well, thanks for that, Josie. But first, I want to share a fun fact about this panel. I've actually had a chance to spend some time with Rachel quite often over the past year and a half. And she met her Soldier for Life on the cross-country team, and I met my Army spouse for life also on the cross-country team. So, being focused on all aspects of wellness, is interconnected, clearly. So that's kind of a daunting assignment that you've given me. So I'll kind of tie it back in this way. And that is that the challenges of wellness are absolutely the same challenges of transition from Army service to civilian life. Whether you have a member of your family who is wounded, ill, and injured or otherwise, those domains of wellness, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the social, the spiritual, the financial, those are all the same domains and the same challenges that we all grapple with when we eventually take the uniform off. And it's not just the soldier, it's the complete family. I was struck by the discussion about familiarity. 2.5 years after I retired, I drove my son up to a bicycle race at Wichita Falls. And we drove onto the Air Force installation, and he took a deep breath inside and said, "Dad, I feel like I'm back home." So all 6 of those variables and all those 6 of those factors come together for overall wellness. But when I talked about transition, I talked about transition really in 3 spheres that encompass all of that. Education and employment, which is our new pathway to our new sense of purpose and belonging and financial readiness. But then it's also health and well-being in the rest of those domains in those spheres. And so it's about thinking and preparing for those same things. Actually, General West talked about it. She talked about the issues and the challenges of behavioral health and the opioid crisis. Those are much greater challenges in the civilian sector than they are in the military sector. All of the challenges that we grapple with wellness and transition are exactly the same as our civilian brothers and sisters. What is different is the operating environment. The culture, the language, the training, the resources, and knowing and understanding how to navigate all of that. Sometimes we get caught up inside the Army with some of the bureaucratic frustrations and challenges, and also by the mandate to always do better, as we heard General West driving the changes in MedCom to always do better, and at the surgeon level as well. And so if you haven't left service yet, separation is a true appreciation for the resources and the programs that we have in the Army. We know where to go when we have an education challenge with either our service members or with our family members. Clearly on the medical side, we know how to plug in. We know all about Army Community Services and the Army Emergency Relief Fund if we've got some financial challenges for our young soldiers. When we think about transition, all of that gets spread across great federal agencies and organizations, great businesses. There are 40,000 nonprofits who purport to support military families and veteran families, and countless communities across the country. And so it's doing your homework and taking ownership prior to that transition and starting to learn about the culture and the language and the resources that are available to you out there and how to plug in. And so transition is more than just TAP. Transition is more than just the 6 to 12 months prior to separation and the 12 months after separation. It's really conditions-based, and it's thinking through all the same spheres of wellness that our families face in uniform and knowing where and how to plug in for those resources and those services when we take off the uniform and our families join us in communities across the nation.
Thank you. And we have time for some questions from the audience. There are microphones in the center aisle if you're interested in standing up and asking. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Is this on?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I went over and asked if it would be all right to ask this question ahead of time, not wanting to interrupt this flow that has come from the panel. I'd like to direct the question to General West if I could. For the last 2 years, I've been connecting. I'm Dave C. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, and I'm state president for AUSA there in Alabama. For the last 2 years, we have been working with the Surgeon General's office in connecting the Surgeon General's office with some technology, i.e. biotechnology that's available there in Huntsville, Alabama. And they've done a great job at working through the Global Force Symposium program that AUSA has and learning more about what it is Hudson Alpha does and how it applies in the medical arenas to all of you on this panel, whether it's through DNA tracking, whether it's through genomic trafficking and things of that work, whether it's about programs for our exceptional family members, those types of effort. Do you see Army medicine changing in the future and what it might look like? And do you see arenas such as Hudson Alpha having a more prominent role in the Army's medicine programs?
Hey, sir, thank you so much for that question. And I tell you, it's, I can almost tee that up. I almost would like you to tee that up for me. Really appreciate it. I absolutely do see a role for evolution in the way we provide health care. I mean, my team is, kind of our motto is conserving the fighting strength since 1775. That's a long time. And we've been around for a while, but just think of the evolution of what we had as healthcare delivery back then, leeches and bloodletting and, trying to make sure that the evil vapors and the evil humors were wafted out of the body to the point where we are now, where we actually have, just like you're saying, we're getting into, more tailorized medicine based upon, someone's genomic makeup. And so I see in the future we're going to have to do that, especially in support of what our Army is being asked to do. And that's one of the things, whatever General Milley says as far as what we need to do for our future, I'm right along there parallel to see what do we in Army medicine need to do to make sure we keep up with that. With multi-domain battle, there's going to be a requirement for us to have more capabilities far forward to be able to do prolonged field care, because we may not have, uncontested air, so we have to know how to, to do something alternatively if we can't evacuate immediately. Like we've had in the last several years. So I see, all types of technology. In fact, our researchers we have a wonderful team led by Major General Barb Holcomb at the MRMC, which is the Medical Research and Materiel Command based at Fort Detrick, who are looking at what's the next level of taking care of our how do we evolve medicine next. And it's not just Army. We're working with our colleagues, Forrest Faison, the Navy Surgeon General, and Mark Ettinger, Air Force as well. And we actually have our colleague from the Defense Health Agency, the director here, Admiral Rocky Bono, that we're looking right now, how is medicine going to evolve in the future to make sure that we're taking care of all of our service members in this multi-domain, multi-matrixed area where it's not just us in our lane in Army. And so I see the need for industry, and Secretary Mattis mentioned that this morning in the, very eloquently in the discussion about the what we're going to need to do in acquisition. We take the best practices of acquisition to make sure that we've got a better, rapid way of fielding things for our forces. We need to do the same thing in medicine. What is going on in the civilian sector that we can operationalize to use in our forces? So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but the short answer is yes. I see a role for that, because if we're not advancing, then we're actually falling behind in technology and medicine. So thanks for that question, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, General. Any other questions from the floor?
Hi, I'm short. My name is Audrey Storch, and I'm from Hugs to Go, but I'm not here for me. I hope I don't get emotional. I'm actually here representing hundreds of thousands of military families. We have a product. It's a huggable picture frame so the children deployed parents. And this one, actually, AUSA, we did over 600,000 with a nonprofit, was donated to all the children deployed parents. That funding was cut over 5 years ago. I don't want to start crying. I just had more calls. I'm here for them. I spent my own money to come. They want it back so bad. And I now sell it direct to them at a huge discount to help out. But I'm here to ask, how do we get it back to them? Because without emotionally, nothing else works.
That is an excellent question. I'm definitely not qualified to answer for it. I will not endorse, but say my children still sleep with their daddy doll.
Thank you.
And occasionally fight over it as well. So if we could have another, but I will pay you for it this time.
Don't worry.
But it's a great point. How do you make it through deployments or separations?
I meant it because I had breast cancer, and we went through separation anxiety, went through chemo and treatment. Then my nephew went in the Marines, and then the military family started calling me. I'm sorry, I'm nervous, because I'm not here to sell. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because of the hundreds of thousands of emails we get begging us, because a lot of them don't make money, and I'm spending all my own money, and I can't anymore. I'll go out of business, so I want to help all of you guys, and I need help to continue helping you.
Thank you.
Because they all said, you can't believe what this rag doll has done. Kids with behavioral issues, special needs, acting out, even the teenagers doing drugs. It made such a difference in their lives, this little rag doll that they got to put daddy or mommy in. And we are recordable, too.
Thank you so much.
So what do I do?
appreciate that.
How do I help them?
Let's talk.
Okay, after.
We have
Thanks.
one question more, and then I think we'll have to wrap it up. But thank you all for being here today. Feel free.
Well, after due thanks, I have a question, but I have to say that besides me leading an overseas chapter for the Association of the United States Army in Kuwait for the last, 11 years involvement, for the last 6 years, I have been very active as patient advocate for advanced cancer patients. So my question is related to two things in the military. First, this is a fascinating panel, and previously also for General West to explain how you involve sleep, physical activity, and nutrition. That's marvelous. But how you really put the pieces of the puzzle together, like the multidisciplinary, this is implementable at the end of the day for all service members for their well-being? And the second question, do you get their feedback, or actually not their feedback, are they the lead as a patient advocate now? Like, are they the lead as patients, and God forbid as patients, or just as members that all this should be around them, they should be the lead as opposed to the industry guidelines, with all due respect to them. The quality of life for patients is the most important part. So how we can address these two issues? Thank you.
Great question. Would anyone on the panel like to address?
So on the non-Army side of the house, I will tell you that, first of all, thank you for your question. That is the exact same question that all of the major organizations across government, nonprofits, businesses, and higher education are struggling to answer. And that is actually, that was the theme. I mentioned a convening that we did in June with 300 partner organizations. And so the Army really has the opportunity to take the lead here and be a model in terms of how to integrate all elements of those domains together. The event in June was the first time 300 different organizations came together to figure out how do we tie together not only the health and wellness issues, but employment and education, as they're all interrelated. And so we are starting to hear major employers across all three major coalitions that hire our soldiers and military spouses talk about addressing specific health and wellness issues within the workplace. We hear the same discussions within higher education. Back to the point that the civilian community faces the same issues as ourselves on a much larger scale. Recently, I heard Jared Lyons, the CEO of Student Veterans of America, tell an audience that in 2016, 40% of all incoming freshmen had a diagnosed mental health condition. That's a huge challenge to address. 40,000 nonprofits tackling health and wellness issues across all of those spheres. How do you cull through who are the best to provide those resources in those services? And so while I don't have a specific answer to your question, I want you to know that your question is in fact being addressed at a national level down to a community level, because there is now recognition with a focus on veteran and military families, that all of these issues are interrelated and we can't disconnect careers from education from health and well-being.
And I'd like to add too, when we started with the Caregiver Initiative, we looked at our higher headquarters, and within DHA, there's an Interagency Care Coordination Committee that really does address all of those domains of care and all those domains of health. So we try to prioritize what they addressed within the family domain so that we were looking at the spiritual component. We were looking at the education piece. I mean, our caregivers are being plucked out of their lives as they know it, and they need that financial planning. They need, help with their resume and employment. And I think our WTBs, our Warrior Transition Battalions, are also an excellent example of really providing that comprehensive transition and assistance, because they also incorporate all of those different domains so that we have a very holistic look at care. And then just one more thing, General West did mention the child and family behavioral health system. And one of their major tenets is that they're really looking out for the other organizations. They're really coordinating with the other organizations that provide assistance to families and children so that they can have an integrated approach to delivering care.
And I'll just close out. We do have a cancer support group for family members in the Army building on Fort Sam Houston, and it wasn't there when I was there as a family support member 7 years ago. So it's something that I would say is ongoing, and I mean that's back to your public-private. That was a private building that the Army now runs, and I think the social work department facilitates the support group. So I would say it's an evolving issue.
Great. Well, please join me in thanking this wonderful panel for sharing their stories with us today. And I'll bring Patty Barron back up on stage to round us out.
Josie, that was incredible moderation, and the panel was just fantastic. Thank you so much. So much information in a very short period of time, but all of it very, very relevant and very heartfelt. Thank you so much. Okay, so now you can take a little break, another quick stretch break. Okay, everyone, our stretch break is over. Time to get back to your seats. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'd like to introduce our next speaker. So if you'd go back to your seats, that would be phenomenal. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker now, so if you'll all take your seats. Thank you. I've lost control. Ladies over there on the left. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Patty Brown. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Our next speaker is a person, again, that is also just a very accomplished woman. Vice Admiral Raquel Bono is the director of the Defense Health Agency, also known as DHA, Defense Health Headquarters, Falls Church, Virginia. She leads a joint integrated combat support agency enabling the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps medical services to provide a medically ready force and a ready medical force to combatant commands in both peacetime and wartime. In support of an integrated, affordable, and high-quality military health service, the DHA directs the execution of 10 joint shared services to include the health plan, which is TRICARE, pharmacy, health information technology, research and acquisition, education and training, public health, medical logistics, facility management, budget resource management, and contracting. That's an awful lot of work. The DHA administers the TRICARE health plan, providing worldwide medical, dental, and pharmacy programs to more than 9.4 million uniformed service members, retirees, and their families. But she's a very passionate woman and really cares an awful lot about all of us. Please welcome Vice Admiral Bono.
Thank you, Patty. That was so nice. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Okay. Thank you. So if it's okay, I'll kind of stand here to the side, because when I stand behind a podium, it just kind of looks like the top of my head, you know, or it looks like this big box is talking and not me. Thanks very much for including me in y'all's event today. And I've just got to say a couple of things. It is really exciting to hear the stuff that's going on across all of military medicine, but it also fills me with a tremendous amount of pride to hear the progress and the work that the MedCom has been doing. And you know, my colleague, Lieutenant General Nadja and I, Nadja West and I, we've kind of gone through this journey of military health together. And you know, I don't want to go into too many, you know, stories about it, but we did kind of start out at the same time, and it's really neat to be able to continue that, that collegiality and that partnership even today. And then I have to tell you that the panel, just amazing. You know, your stories are riveting, they're inspiring, and you give me the insight where, you know, that I want to be able to take and figure out what do we need to do to make your healthcare plan, your health plan work as effectively as possible. And so as you heard Patty talk, I'm the director of the Defense Health Agency, and one of the big pieces of my portfolio is the TRICARE health plan. And so I wanted to be able to spend a few minutes talking about that, but I'm really more interested in turning it over to you and hearing what your thoughts are. Because when I came into the job nearly 2 years ago, the thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to find a way to create this integrated system of readiness and health around you, our beneficiaries. And I firmly believe that our TRICARE health plan and our military health plan is your health plan. And part of what I have the honor to do is figure a way to make it as responsive and as complementary to your needs and to what your challenges might be in terms of health or in any other domain. Because I think the panel did a wonderful job about talking about the importance of being able to address all the domains in your life in terms of being able to address your own health and wellness. And I share that conviction as well. I think that also having worked with General Horoho in the past and the work that she did with the performance triad, it makes sense, right? I mean, these are things that we should be paying attention to. And these are things that we all have the ability to address. But thank goodness we also have now more resources to help us be a little bit better with our activity, our nutrition, you know, and all those aspects of being able to address what your own health and wellness is going to be like. So I wanted to just touch base on a couple of things, and wanted to talk a little bit about some of the more recent world events. And for those, you know, we've had a lot of them, whether it's the weather, whether it's intentional mass casualty that's been going on in other parts of our country. But, you know, it's important to realize that while those things are going on, while, you know, we hope that that those that are involved are kept safe, or those where there's loss, that we're able to rally around the survivors, it's important to realize that your healthcare plan is still there when these events happen. And with the recent hurricanes, one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that we had access to primary care managers, to physicians, to doctors, for those of our beneficiaries that were displaced because of the hurricanes or the flooding. We wanted to make sure that they could be able to find health care wherever they got displaced to. And we also recognize that in order to support many of our beneficiaries, We also had to adjust some of our authorizations for care, as well as some of the refill too soons on the medications that you get through the mail order. So we try to pay attention to those kind of things. We try to pay attention to what's happening with the MTFs that are in those areas where we have these weather events. We also had, with the Las Vegas event, we had some of our military trauma surgeons from the Air Force, from Nellis Air Force Base, go to some of those local hospitals to help out with taking care of those casualties. And you know what? It's times like this that it reminds me that the military health system really is a comprehensive global system where we all surge, regardless of our uniform, to do what we know needs to be done. And we don't even ask. You know, we don't even ask who it is we're taking care of. We just know that as the military health system, your military health system, we know what our call of duty looks like, and we surge to take care of that. And I think that's something that we all can be very proud of. And it's also something that you need to know is going on in the background every day. You've probably heard about some of the changes that are coming to TRICARE. And I want to leave time to talk about those because I know there may be some questions about some of maybe the co-pays and some of the things that have changed there. But I do want to stress that part of the reason why we changed some of these things from going from 3 healthcare plans to 2 plans, and that's we still have TRICARE Prime, but we've condensed or we've brought together TRICARE Standard and TRICARE Express into TRICARE Select, because we wanted to simplify that because we see what's happening in the commercial and the private healthcare sector. And we wanted to be able to give you a product that mirrors what's happening in the private healthcare sector. So that's one of the changes, and we'll be starting that in January of 2018. You have at your seats, you have some of the fact sheets, and you also have a little card there. Because one of the things, and if you take nothing else, if you just take that tiny card, I think it's a little business card, it has take command. Yes, I think you've got it right there. If someone can hold that up. Yes, thank you. Perfect. If you don't bring anything else, take that, because one of the things that is it's a reminder to make sure that your DEERS information is accurate. Because in our efforts to make it as easy as possible for you to transition into the new healthcare, we will auto-enroll you into the healthcare plan that you're currently in now. And in order for us to do that, we have to have the most accurate information on DEERS. So take that and make sure that you start updating that. And please help me get the word out to folks, because we want this to be as seamless as possible, and we want to make it so that you don't have to do very much heavy lifting in order to make this happen. There were also some changes to, as I mentioned earlier, to the cost share, and we moved to a copay. And on your seats and on the tables here, you'll see on the sheet there, if someone could hold that up, no, the other one there, that one, yes, that one. On the back, I've actually gone ahead and given you the copays that we had figured out. And I know there are probably a lot of questions about that, so I'll save time so that we can talk about that a little bit more. Then finally, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on in pediatric care. And the panel really reminded me about the importance of taking care of families and how much of our families is not only our spouses, but our children. And as a mother myself, I mean, I totally, it resonates with me about that need to preserve routine. And it really means so much, no matter what challenge our children are facing, being able to preserve that routine and being able to give them that safe environment and that access that they need is so important. And I think that's foundational to every one of our military families. I think the strength of our military comes from the strength of our families. And how well we take care of our families is what tells us how successful we'll be in our own military strength. And so, and as many of you know, and Miguel, I'm sorry for the informality, I'm calling you by your first name, but as you mentioned, you know, we have legacies of military families. So many of our military people that come in to our military today, we raise them from within. And so how well we do that is what signifies how strong our military is going to continue to be in the future. So I feel that's very important. And some of you may know that we recently had a report come out by the Defense Health Board to look at our pediatric population. And I'm really passionate about taking care of our families and especially our kids. But some of the suggestions that the Defense Health Board offered to us is, number one, we need to communicate more. And I couldn't agree more, which is why I try to make sure that I take opportunities such as these to talk to y'all and more importantly to hear from y'all, to hear what should I be doing, what should I be paying attention to in order to make sure our health care is working to the best of what you need. It also recommended that we move towards more data-driven and evidence-based care, so that we're looking really at what does the science tell us. And that's something that I completely agree with. I know that while we all have the best intentions in taking care of our families, we also want to make sure that what we're giving them for care, that we have a high degree of confidence that it's actually going to help them. So that was a recommendation that the Defense Health Board gave us, is to provide more evidence-based care and to be able to show how we've come to the decision about making that care available. And then one of the other areas, and this has been a very challenging part for many families, is how we take care of some of our seriously ill children who may need hospice care and state-of-the-art care, and how do we combine that? Because sometimes, because our kids respond differently to different treatments, we'd kind of been treating them like little adults, and that's not the right thing. So we're trying to be more comprehensive in how we take care of our kids. And then finally, one of the other things that we're working on here is we have a very special population. I mean, all of our kids are very special, but I recognize that it's our retirees and our very mature and our very young populations in the military are probably the most vulnerable. And so in taking care of our pediatric population, we're looking very closely to see if we can extend some of the benefits in our ECHO program, and we're also looking to see how we can improve and elevate the level of care that we give to those kids with autism spectrum disorder. So those are just a few of the things that we're working on, and I'm so grateful. I'm very appreciative of being included in the conversation, because it truly gives me some insight. Listening to the panel, listening to General West was so helpful in understanding what we can be doing and what we should be paying attention to create the most comprehensive and integrated system of readiness and health in your healthcare plan. So let me stop there and give you guys an opportunity. Oh, and actually, to get us started, I do have a question that somebody asked on Facebook. And I thought I'll go ahead and take on this question because I thought it was a really good way to show you the approach that we're trying to take in the Defense Health Agency with regards to your healthcare plan. And the question has to do is, the person is curious as to when will acupuncture, chiropractic treatments, and other similar treatment options be approved for dependents. So that is a really great question, because as most of you know, right now, those treatments are not a covered benefit. Yet in some of our MTFs, we offer acupuncture, chiropractic treatment, and other types of treatment modalities like that. So one of the things that we're trying to do here is we're looking at the evidence for outcomes, or the outcomes associated with these treatments, and we're looking at private and commercial healthcare plans to see how they're addressing these treatment modalities. And then we're looking to see if we have enough evidence to start having that conversation, or to ask the question, what would we need to do to start including that in your healthcare plan? So I thought I'd go ahead and start off with something like that, because in the past what we would have said, well, it's not a covered benefit and you have to go to the MTFs. But I want to try to take that question and give it a slightly different perspective, and that is let's look at it. And if there's value and there's evidence that there's benefit to this, then what would we need to do to make sure that all of our beneficiaries had access to that type of care? So hopefully that'll give you kind of a sense of the approach that we're trying to take. But I'd really welcome any of the questions here from the audience or on the Facebook site. So don't leave me hanging up here just kind of quietly. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to hear you speak. And I'm here on behalf of Music Therapy and Creative Arts Therapies. I'm a guest of Captain Avila and his wife Claudia here today. And just really to piggyback off the first question, which was great, and I've done a lot of work at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence at Walter Reed, and in the pediatric unit, child and adolescent behavioral health on the hospital side, we saw some really profound just breakthroughs in recovery and just assistance in prolonged stays or treatment with the children and dependents. So it works really well for the service members, but also for the families. There is pioneering research that's happening now through help of the National Endowment for the Arts and their Creative Forces initiative, and that's open access. So just to affirm that there are some new studies and novel studies being done on creative arts therapies. And then also asking, thanks to the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund and the MOUs between the DoD and Creative Forces, we do have at the Intrepid Spirits across the country creative arts therapists embedded. So how can the DoD, even though the DoD, DHA, MHS is not directly funding the positions, how can we utilize the resources for research and evaluation, and how can we kind of tie that in where we can get more studies that are supported by the DoD?
That's a great question, because I think that, in each of the topics that we covered in the panel, and in looking at the topics that General West spent describing to you, I think this is what strikes me about our health and our wellness and our recovery. It is such a complex process, and there is no one solution that works for everybody. And I think that's why the diversity of the panel that you saw here and that you heard, I don't think any one of them thought, well, this is the one way to address something. It's really kind of a combination, and a lot of it has to do with your own individual makeup, and sometimes we just don't know what that entails unless we offer a broad variety or a very diverse approach to addressing some of these conditions or these circumstances that we're facing. And so I think that in that vein, I think that's why it's so powerful to be able to pursue that in a very rigorous scientific way and to encourage people across the different services and in industry. And I think somebody had talked about partnering with biotech. I mean, I think this is a great time to be partnering with a lot of different commercial and private entities, because as smart as we are in the military, we just don't have all the solutions. And sometimes there are people out there that are working on things that if we had access to what they've got, or if we had access or we had better understanding of some of the solution sets they had, it would be a lot easier to try and bring that into our system. So I think that what you're doing and what you're describing is something that I'd like to see for a lot of other conditions or a lot of other circumstances that we have in our healthcare field. So I think we should continue to have that conversation and make sure that we're including as many of the folks that are interested and that have potential solution sets for that. But thank you for that question. That's great.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Mokler, and I have a question. We're a little bit over a year out on the reintroduction of the nurse advice line and also allowing more visits to urgent care. How has that helped with access to care?
Really great question. And before I answer that, could I kind of get from the crowd, have y'all had a chance to do the nurse advice line? Okay, so a few, okay. And of those ones that were brave enough to raise their hand, would you be brave enough to share what your experience has been? And if it helps, I won't make direct eye contact so you don't feel self-conscious. Yes, ma'am.
We were at a wedding in California, and my child spiked 103 temperature. I called. They told us the nearest urgent care to go to, and they even called in and told me what pharmacy to go to that would take TRICARE.
Great, awesome. Well, that's wonderful to hear. Anybody else's experience? Thank you.
We had a very positive experience with it, ma'am, in that we were given advice that kept us from having to take anybody to an emergency room.
Perfect.
But we're able to take care of it with home care, so it was very reassuring.
Awesome, thank you. So, those are just anecdotes, but that's what we were hoping to hear. And so I've actually looked at the figures, And it does seem that while our overall access to urgent care and emergency department has remained just slightly under what we did last year, what I'm noticing is that there are less ER visits. And so we have a slight uptick on urgent care, which is what we were hoping, that if we needed to get folks in terms of access, that we'd be able to get them into urgent care. So we're looking also at the authorizations, and we started out a pilot in which you had 2 referrals, where you didn't need referrals, I'm sorry, you could have 2 urgent care visits without needing an authorization. And as you know, the statute is asking us to go to unlimited. The thing that we found out, though, is when we have the nurse advice line, what we found is that we can either direct the beneficiary to a more appropriate place, and if you're traveling or you're in a place where you're unfamiliar, we can actually find something that's close there that takes TRICARE, and that's also very helpful. The other piece is that in some situations when we've had folks call to the nurse advice line, we've found that we can actually take care of the care right there on the line, or we're able to make appointments for them the following day into the MTFs. So right now it seems to be working. It's working so well, I mean, in terms of the trend that we were hoping to see, that we've expanded the nurse advice line a little bit more. So we'll be checking to see if that's still an effective way of handling some of our access and being able to help refer people to the appropriate care. Do you have a recommendation for us to consider, or do you have a thought on, okay. So do you think we should keep the nurse advice line? Okay, all righty, good. Well, I'd like to, I have my MSO, VSO meetings myself on a quarterly basis, so I'd like to be able to make sure that if this is working for you, let me know that, and if you have some suggestions for how we can even make it better, let me know that too. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I actually have had used the nurse advice line twice with great results, and so yes, 2 thumbs up. My question is about the new dental program and the lack of providers. I'm actually live in this area. I'm part of a couple of Facebook pages, and the number 1 question is, hey, my dentist has now left the network. Yeah. And so where are we going from here? Because if we can't find a dentist that's a provider in this metropolitan area, I'm concerned about our families that are in more rural areas. And do you see this becoming a problem with our civilian doctors who provide services from us? And what's the way forward for both of those sides of the equation?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking it, because one of the things that we're trying to do with your health plan, we saw a chance when we started looking, when we switched over to our new dental provider. And while we had, as part of the terms of their contract, that they needed to have a large enough network that people would have access to them within 10 minutes. I realized in listening to our our beneficiaries, that while that was okay, many of our beneficiaries would like to have dentists that are closer than the 10-minute that we had specified as the drive time. And so I wanted to take that approach that in terms of building that network, it's not so much how big the network is, it's how close the network is to where the beneficiaries are. Does that make sense? So I'm taking that same approach with the network for the healthcare plan. It's not so much that I have a really large network, although it has to be large enough. The more important thing in my mind is making sure that the network is close enough to where patients actually live, so that we can keep that access as close to home as possible and help complement whatever we have if there is any direct care assets there. Does that get to what you were asking? Yeah, sure. Okay, could you help me understand? Because I really want to make sure I've got the. Could you come to the.
We've actually been stationed in a lot of rural places, so really when you say care 10 minutes close to home, I'm like, wow, that would be really great. I'm just happy to get somebody a little bit further away. So that's the metric by which you're looking at?
Not so much that, and I was probably, I want to make sure that we still adhere to the same access standards that we already have in terms of availability and drive time. So those things remain the same, but what I'm appreciating is while the drive time might be preserved, what we really need to be concentrating on is how do we improve that access so we don't have to go to the full length of that drive time to get to the provider. So in rural areas, and that's something that I want to pay really close attention to. Here's the insight that I gathered though as we brought on our new contractors for the T2017 contract. Number one, we've got some really good contracts, managed care support contractors. Humana and HealthNet have been partners with us for a very long time. So they know us and we know them. But the other thing that I recognize is they have commercial and private clients. We're not their only clients. And so I realized that they're, and somebody had mentioned, we've mentioned this a couple of times today, we in the military, we're a microcosm of the rest of the nation. So our healthcare demands are not that different from others. Sure. And so being able to leverage what our contractors have for their private clients is something that I hope we can get available for our military beneficiaries. So we still have those drive times. I didn't mean to misspeak about that. But what I am paying attention to is rather than creating a network where the goal is within 30 minutes, is can we make a network where the goal is a little bit less than 30 minutes? Does that kind of get a little bit better?
Kinda. Are you going to be able to do that?
Well, I think so. I do, because like I said, that's one of the things that I realized is that Humana and HealthNet also have private clients, and that's what their expectations are. So why shouldn't I create conditions for having that for our healthcare plan?
I think I would be more concerned about the quality of the health care as opposed to really how far I had to drive, which is what concerns me about the dental program, because dental health is, it's part of your wellness package. Yeah. And if we can't get to I can probably drive to 17 dentists in 5 minutes, but that doesn't mean that they're going to take my insurance and I'm going to be able to get my teeth cleaned. Yeah. So, so what are we going to do about the dentist issue? Yeah. Specifically.
No, I think that's a great point, and that's one of the other things too for both our dental and healthcare plans. We're also holding a certain level of quality and standard of care for our providers. So in working with our contractors, that's going to be something that we're making sure that the quality of the providers are what we need, what we expect and what we deserve for our plan.
So are they leaving the network because we're not happy with the quality of their service? Are they leaving the network because the payout is not what it's, because that's what I hear. Yeah. But maybe there's another side to the story that we need to share with our families. Because what I hear is it's all about the money, which we all know that's probably a lot true. There's only so much to go around. Right. Am I making sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I mentioned my MSO VSO. I actually had the senior VPs for the new dental plan come and listen to us, because there was what you just talked about were some of the things that we were very interested in understanding. And so part of the challenge is, how do I work with our contractors so that they can get us the providers that we need, that we can also make sure that we're making it, and you're right, I have to make sure that I make it profitable for them as well. But how do I drive that, how do I navigate that to make sure that we get the access we need and we're getting the quality and the patient safety? So I think it's a combination of that, and it's not one at the expense of the others. So working very closely with the contractors is how we're doing that.
Okay, so last thing, I promise. Can you just in layman's terms then tell me what I should be saying to my families? What is the way ahead? You're working on a resolution for the issue? Can you give me the 20-second answer?
Yes. What you can do to help is, if you could ask your beneficiaries or your constituents or your family members, help me understand when they're running into that, so that I can make sure that I can actually address that. Because what I'm finding, it's not necessarily one or two, it's happening in certain areas. So by understanding, if you're here, are you in the metropolitan DC area? I am. Okay. So understanding that, then I can go back to the contractor and say, hey, this is not meeting with what we need to do. We did the same thing for Tidewater because we were
Northern Virginia too.
Northern Virginia, okay. So we did that in Tidewater because we realized that what you're describing was happening down there. So when I know these things, then I can go ahead and start addressing. But if you could let us know that, and as a matter of fact, I have folks here in the audience who, if you can give us some information, that would be good. We'll look at it right away. And the other thing is, this is a shameless plug. You can like me on Facebook, and you can follow me at DHA, or you can follow my Twitter account at DHA Director. But I'm serious because that way I can get that information. Okay, but that's perfect. Thank you. All right, I just wanted, there's a question. What can TRICARE and/or the Army do to streamline processes between DEERS and TRICARE? The link seems to break very easily. However, it's much more difficult to restore those connections. Thus, it causes lapses in care and services. Really great question. So one of the things that we're doing, because we are rolling over to TRICARE Select, the new healthcare plan in January 2018, we're working very closely with DMDC, who does the DEERS, to make sure that their system, their digital system, can keep pace with where we need to go with your information. And so we've been testing it actually this month and been getting some really good results on that. So let me know if it's working, because come January, we're going to do this automatic enrollment. So take your cards, make sure you take command, and take those other small cards too. Help me get the word out. We want to make sure that we can do this automatically for you. So I'm getting the big stop sign here. So she's really nice about it, though. I noticed she was doing that for the panel, and I couldn't even tell that you were like waving them off. You did it so well. So these are some really good questions. And again, thank you so much for including me in the conversation. I'm inspired, and I'm really motivated to hear y'all's stories. And I'm pretty excited that you've given me some insight in some of the areas that we want to make sure and address and pay really close attention to. And more importantly, as we address some of these areas, please help me out and let me know if it's actually having the intended effect, because this is your healthcare plan, and it's been my honor all these years to be able to be a part of it and to make sure that we're making that integrated system of readiness and health for y'all. So thank you very much.
Ma'am, thank you so much. My biggest takeaway, and I think for the audience, is that if there are issues and problems, we need to let you all know about them, both for General West as well, I imagine, that it is something that we control our health care. We also have to work with the folks that provide the health care, and we have to let them know when there are problems. So thank you for that. I am so grateful that you all were still here, and thank you for staying. And it's been a great afternoon of a lot of good information, some very compelling stories. I'm very, very we've had some health issues in our family for the last year or so, and I can tell you from my perspective that for us, the military healthcare system has worked incredibly well, and we are very, very thankful for that. All right, we'll see you all tomorrow then, 9 o'clock.